for senior year, as well as some information about college applications, SLEs, things like that. So hopefully after tonight, you have a good picture of what senior year is going to look like for your senior. And from there, we are doing most of our information virtually from that point. So through email, Parent Square, but we're always open to meet with you folks. If you have any questions, want to come in and chat with us. Of course, we're here to help your students, primarily for the senior class. As an administrator, I'm the go-to, and for counseling, Claudia Vandenberg is. Much of what you hear tonight has already been, actually all of what you hear tonight has already been presented to your senior students. So if at any point one of us trails off or anything like that, just remember all we can see is our own faces, which is a little bit difficult to get used to, but I think we can do it. So life after high school, planning the senior year for your senior. And just first have to start off by saying, I'm sure most of you feel pretty shocked that it is here. Your little student has become a senior. You know, unfortunately, a lot of last year and part of the year before, there was some disruption because of COVID and distance learning. And for most of you, I'm sure it's felt a little bit more rushed even than normal. But we're here, and our goal and our plan is to make sure that we provide everything in a timely manner to all of you, and we treat it just the same as we always have, and maybe even a little bit more effort and focus because of the time that we've lost. But senior year is an important one. Clearly, some of you have had seniors, some of you haven't. There's a lot of deadlines, a lot of due dates, a lot of things to prepare for. And that's why we're here tonight, because we want to make sure everybody has a good handle on it. But it is also important to remember to celebrate senior year and remember that this is a special year and special time for your seniors. And we do have a lot for special celebrations of seniors, including, of course, this week is homecoming week. And we started off with some fun activities today. So just remember to soak it in and make sure that you enjoy your time with your senior.
Oh, this is my turn now. Hi, everybody. I think most of you probably know both of us, but just in case, I'm Claudia Vandenberg. I am the counselor for the seniors. And like Dr. Ching said, I've been in class already and talked through all of this with them. I've created a website for senior year where everything we're going to talk about tonight and more is all in one place. So this is the keep it easy. This is the bit.ly address right here, bit.ly/Minarets 2022. So one-stop shop for everything there.
Yeah, one of the benefits of us being virtual last year is we had to come up with a lot of virtual resources for people. So like Claudia said, there's a lot of things that you can access on your own and on your own pace and refer to. So everything that we go over tonight is going to be on that website, and we'll send out reminders of what that link is. So stay up to date on that. So just wanted to start off with some big picture stuff with the seniors. I kind of already addressed it, but coming back from COVID, we want to make sure that we overcompensate in informing our students of what it takes to make sure that they're college and career ready, including applications for colleges, community colleges, four-year private UC, CSU, as well as scholarships. We have a local scholarship program here that we give a lot of money. We, being a lot of community members, give a lot of money to students, making sure that our students have all that information, but also important class stuff like your senior legacy experience, your senior advancement process, fun things like grad night, sober grad, prom, things like that. So coming back from COVID, that's part of our goal. Our other goal is to make sure that seniors have that special senior year. And we pay very close attention to doing everything we can to make up for lost time and being together. So that is definitely a focus of ours as a staff and as an administration. This is the first year of Living Pro. And when people ask what that class is, I basically tell them, you know, that class that everyone says, I wish they would have taught that in high school. They should really teach kids how to do this in high school. That is essentially what Living Pro is. So when you hear things about finance, taking care of cars, uh, how to market yourself for a career and put yourself out there, resume, those kind of things, as well as practical self-care, home care. We're all wrapping that up into one class called Living Pro. And this is our pilot first year. So we're still kind of working out some of that content, but Mrs. McCoy has already launched into that. Students have already been working on their resumes and have begun the process of their senior legacy experiences. So if you've had seniors before or you know of seniors before, the difference is with the SLE and the SAP, the senior advancement, those are built into this class. So it is a requirement to pass this class as a senior. But it truly is meant to not add work on top of the seniors, but it's our last chance to just get them ready for life after high school. And that's what we're going all in on in Living Pro. So when you see some of those assignments, when you're checking out Canvas, when you're having those conversations with your students, our hope is that you get to hear some of the really practical things that they're learning in that class that will immediately be useful for them the next year. And then finally, activities. We are going to be reaching out to you about, of course, telling you about activities such as grad night, sober grad, senior breakfast. There already was a senior sunrise, some other special things like that. But we're also going to be asking for help from time to time. And that typically, as far as school-wide or senior-wide things go, that typically takes the form of helping at senior breakfast, which is the last week of school, which Stacy Wold is in charge of communicating, and also sober grad, and that basically means donating some foods and drinks for students the night of graduation. We don't expect you to go down there the night of graduation, but those are two things we usually ask our parents to help out on. Outside of that, for sports and for things like FFA and drama, we have our built-in banquets and our senior nights to celebrate seniors. So just make sure you mark your calendars. We'll send out reminders that you can make every single moment of their senior year and make sure that you're there to celebrate with them. So we'll keep you posted on all these things. Claudia and myself, we send out a lot of senior messengers throughout the year. It's just really important to make sure that you keep those dates in mind when we post those because they're going to fly at you like crazy. So things that catch people off guard is just the amount of dates coming, deadlines, as well as sometimes as a senior, it tends to cost a little more than other years just because there's more celebrations than in other classes. So that's all for that. That's just kind of the big picture. So I wanted to talk about senior legacy experience because it is such a big part of their final year and then moving on. And SLE, as we like to call it, is built into Living Pro. So the question is that we often get asked, is it a requirement for students to graduate? Well, yes, particularly in terms of they have to pass Living Pro to graduate. And an SLE is an essential part of passing Living Pro. So just wanted to make sure you as parents have a general idea. Of course, Miss McCoy, who's the teacher of this class, has a lot more detail, but I just want to let you know the elements that are involved in this and just some specifics to be looking out for because more often than not, parents are a part of the senior legacy experience. It's driven by the senior, of course, but naturally we want to help them in their culminating project. So the three aspects are their proposal video, which they've already submitted, their plan, which now that their proposals are getting approved, they write a plan that's detailed and goal-oriented to complete the SLE. And then finally, their SLE video is their culminating demonstration of their learning. So it's really just those three parts. We've gone through all the proposals and we've marked most of them green, which means they're okay. We've marked a few yellow because we have to do some tweaking. And there are just a few reds, which means they kind of have to start from scratch. Typically, if it hasn't been approved, it could be something to do with it's not quite up to the expectation of an SLE, or it just may not be something that's realistic to pull off. Those are typically the two elements to that. And I guess the last category would be it's been done so many times before, it's not really an SLE anymore. It's kind of just built into the school. But most kids have passed that already. Make sure you check in with your student to make sure that they've been approved for their SLE. So just jumping into some more specifics about the SLE.
Are you going here?
Yeah. So to do that, I just want to kind of give an example, and I always kind of do the example of myself doing an SLE. So this is me, Daniel Ching, doing my SLE, and my SLE would be, the goal would be bringing school spirit to another level. So this would be an example of an example of an SLE kind of proposal or plan. When I describe my SLE, it would be something that is attached to measurable goals. So my SLE, the goals would have to be clearly articulated. So I want to increase participation in games and rallies by 10%. So I'd have to look at numbers. How could I verify that I've done that? Increase professional dress Mondays. Start 2 new spirit events, football tailgate and spring barbecue. Establish a permanent student section at the new stadium. Raise funds for a new mascot and do a rally that's never been done before, the kind of rally that you haven't seen. So those are all measurable outcomes that I want to complete, that you can actually look at and say, yes, you did that. Yes, you did that. No, you did that. No, you did that. Did not do that. So then I'd have to get some specifics. So here I'd said, okay, I'm going to target tailgate before the Dam Bowl, which was canceled this year, unfortunately. Rally, putting on that new kind of rally in February. Mustang Pride Barbecue in April. Raise funds through special games during the basketball games. I utilize my role in leadership, and it would all take place at Minarets High School. So an important part of this is, how does it connect to the student's passion or something that they've been involved in? So we ask students to build an SLE that means something to them, whether through their set of skills that they've acquired, meaning like classes they've taken or skills they've acquired, maybe even off campus, and or something that they're really passionate about. So maybe somebody in their family is struggling with a certain kind of disease, or maybe in their history they spent a lot of time through their church in the children's program. So things that they can connect both their skill set and their passion to. So this is just an example of what made me want to raise school spirit at Minarets. And then a detailed plan of what you need to accomplish the goal. Just kind of going back to those examples that don't necessarily work out. It's like, okay, students want to, I don't know, build a second gym. Clearly, there's way more that goes into that than they can pull off. So understanding what you'll need, materials, people, timelines, funds, all those types of things for students to have a clear picture of what they need to accomplish the goal. And then identifying mentors. So something we changed recently is it does not necessarily have to be a staff member that's a mentor. We do want them checking in with a staff mentor at some point of some kind. Some of those are not really going to be related to any of the staff members. So if your student has spent a lot of time in an outside organization that's not related to school, obviously their mentor would be, I don't know, the president of that nonprofit, or maybe it's a pastor or something like that, versus a school teacher or a staff member. But we do want them to identify who is actually helping them and who's checking in with them through this process. And then lastly, how are you going to measure if you're successful or not? I always tell students it's okay to experience failure through your SLE. We're going to reach for success, but we learn through failure. So if there are some failures, it's important to identify those, but we need some measurements of how to determine if this is successful or not. So for my point here, attendance at dances would be compared to the last 2 years. We'd look at ticket sales. We'd do a survey with the student body after the rally to see if they thought that was a new, refreshing kind of rally. We'd mark the attendance at the tailgates and barbecues. We'd measure how much money we were able to raise for the mascot. And we do a survey at the end of the year for students to give feedback on if they thought that school spirit did, in fact, increase that year. So those are ways for us to measure if we did it or we didn't. And there's multiple measures there. So this is truly just a reflection of the skill set and the talents and interests that your student has acquired over time. It's their culminating experience. There should be an online presence of some kind, social media. That could be through the channels of the school, that could be on their own, it could be through the channels of the nonprofit. They just have to demonstrate proof that they're doing that. They have to promote this, they have to execute it, they have to communicate it all. And it should be bigger than any project that they've done in terms of a school project. They should look at it as like, this is my top thing that I've done. And that's a true measure of what they've accomplished or been involved with through school. I just want to make one point on that is a lot of times we have kids that have kind of already begun a process of a project that they've been working on over time. And this is just an extension of that. We have kids that are starting nonprofits. We have kids that are building something very significant. We've had students that have filmed full-length feature films. So there's a lot of variety here. Don't think that it's kind of like this self-contained project only. In fact, if they're doing what we're asking, there's a good chance that it is connected to something they've already been working on. So the myths that we often come across, this means things that people say but aren't necessarily true. SLEs have to raise money. That's not true. A lot of kids just assume they have to raise money for charity. We kind of look at that as one of the senior projects versus senior experience. Senior project feels like a little bit of a one and done. That's not necessarily what it is here, just raising money. It does not have to go to a charity. It's not just raising money for a charity or identifying a charity. It doesn't have to be that. Flyers are very, very outdated promotional tools. So we haven't seen a lot of this lately because we've been pushing it a lot, but just putting up flyers around town, around the school is not effective promotion. And then the last one, if I don't do one, they'll just make me pick up trash and I'll pass. And that's not the case. All kids have to complete an SLE.
Oops.
So one of the most important things in all of this, if students are handling money, there's 3 ways to do it. And none of these involve students taking cash home and like sitting on cash. If this is done through ASB, there's a lot of very strict rules that protect us against fraud as a school. That goes through Autumn Alford in the office. She is actually going to go in and talk to the Living Pro classes to make sure that we understand it has to go through the ASB channels. Or it could go through our Minarets Foundation, which is a nonprofit. The only thing is it has to go through an existing member group. All the sports are underneath that. Drama is underneath that. There's some youth sports underneath that. There's some other clubs that are part of that that are non-sports based, but they have to exist already. And then the last one is you can actually go directly through a nonprofit as long as that channel goes directly through them. What we don't want is, hey, just send me all this in my Venmo and then I'm going to donate it to Bully Rescue. That is not what we want. We want students to go through the correct channels. And the rule of thumb is if it doesn't have a nonprofit tax ID, then we shouldn't be doing it, basically, if we're handling money. All right. So I think that is it for the senior legacy experience. Claudia, I don't know if you're getting questions about it.
Nope, no questions so far.
All right, I must be covering it swimmingly. Okay, so the second one is a little less intense. It's the capstone interview process for seniors completing their senior year at Minarets. It's called the Senior Advancement Process. And this is basically kind of the last reflective hoorah of our seniors. This has often been called if you guys are familiar, I don't even know because we're in distance learning, but we every year we do something called the PBE, or the Personal Brand Equity, and that's a reflective presentation done by our students. This is the senior version. It's kind of that on steroids. It's a senior version of this. So what it basically entails them providing a portfolio of some of their top projects throughout high school, as well as their resume and cover letter. And it is them presenting with a guided presentation that's given to them before. It's them presenting their experience, and they're asked to tell some stories that kind of demonstrate meaningful learning at Minarets. They're asked to reflect on how they've grown as an individual, grown academically, and also project into the future what they want to do, what they want to accomplish. So ultimately, it's just a really fun, interactive process for seniors to just kind of say, I'm done. And that happens in April, right before the last couple of weeks. I don't think that we go over this in this presentation, but seniors are actually done with schooling about midway through May, excuse me. There's a few different things that they need to do beyond that, including practice and checking out and things like that. But it flies pretty fast. So after they're done with their senior advancement process, just a couple of weeks of instruction after that. So this is just really fun. I hope this year we can do some stuff where we're kind of recording and reflecting some of this as administrators, because as a principal, and I know Claudia feels the same way, in some of these presentations, oh my gosh, they're tear jerkers, they're inspiring. It's just really cool to see the kids talk about their experience and themselves. So that's also going to be part of Living Pro. So those are those two big projects in Living Pro, and two culminating projects for seniors. Completely switching gears, I think, and I'm going to hand it to Claudia after this, I think. But we are going to be posting grad night tickets very, very soon. Grad night is on. It's ready to go. It's May 20th. And it's at Six Flags Magic Mountain, and Six Flags basically hosts an all-night senior party. This includes dinner. This includes refreshments while they're there. We send usually about 6 to 8 chaperones down there. And it's just a really fun time. We suggest it to everybody. We do have to cap it based on the bus numbers. So if you look at the cost would also include our sober grad, which we're gonna announce soon. We're actually working with a couple of venues to figure out where we're gonna have that. But that includes that, and includes the buses, which we're anticipating an increase based on what we're hearing with the charter buses. That includes that whole thing. So they're down and back. It's on a Friday night, and they return Saturday. I think they come back at like 6 or 7 in the morning. They start driving back from Valencia at that point. But we have a tiered system where it starts at 2:30, which we're going to post that. If it's not already posted, it actually might be on the store right now, on the online store. The permission slips and first payment can go to Stacy. So you can just put a deposit down if you want to lock in the initial price. And that's our way to make sure that we get enough early signups to lock in those charter buses and lock in those tickets with Six Flags. So there's an incentive to put in early. I believe you can just pay on the online store too. So I will send out a messenger this week, to a senior messenger this week, just to confirm. Claudia or I will. So you guys can lock in that price. But we generally have a really high attendance, and kids have a blast. I don't think there's been a single time where kids came back and said, "Oh, that wasn't worth it." They really love it. And last year they didn't get to do it. So this is a big deal for us to be able to do this again. Another one is yearbook. So yearbook cost is the same thing. It's a tiered system, so we can lock in our printing costs. 85 up until November 1st, and then it goes all the way up to $95. You can go and order at jostens.com. You just have to put in Minarets High School. We are doing some ads. When I say ads, I mean you can just do a shout out to your student. There's some beautiful ones if you look in the past yearbooks. Some beautiful kind of montage type photos of students, or just a single photo, or you could promote your business and get a tax write-off. So lots of opportunities there, but we need to lock those in as early as possible so you can guarantee that price. So senior yearbook photos. So everyone, every year they reach out to us and say, who does the senior photos? We don't have a specific photographer. We ask that you find your own photographer, but you're going to submit those photos to us. The link is down there at the bottom. We will send that out probably repeatedly within the next few months. A key thing to remember is that for yearbook, we're only accepting horizontal photos, not vertical photos. So basically you're in charge of those photos. If for some reason there's a hardship where you can't pull that off and you're struggling with that, let us know. We do have some availability with our media team to do that, but we prefer that you go out and find a photographer and get those done as early as possible. Did I say the date that those are due, Claudia? I'm not sure I did. It was on there, but okay, December 1st, yeah. Okay, so this is where I get to be the bad guy, because sometimes students submit photos and they're out of dress code. Don't want to really go into dress code right now, but just understand that this goes for girls and boys. We've had kind of the full gamut of submissions. It's okay to have senior photos that are really custom to how you want them with your child, but as far as a yearbook goes, we have to stick with some really strict guidelines on what we can put in there. So if it's against the school dress code, and you can find that online on our website, just make sure that you don't submit those photos, because what we'll have to do is send them back and say we need another one. And in years past, we did that, and people didn't get us the photo in time, and we just kind of had to have a placeholder photo, and people weren't happy. You're paying for a yearbook, you're paying for senior photos. Just make sure that you submit those to us. And if you submit them early, we can get back to you really early too.
Okay, I think I'm jumping in now. Thank you, Dr. Jing. So graduate services, it's very hard to believe, but they're already starting their process of doing cap and gown ordering and class ring ordering. They're going to be on campus, as you can see here on the flyer, October 21st and November 16th. You're welcome to come in. We'll, of course, be blasting out the dates with more information as we get closer, but you're welcome to come during those times. They do bring the whole setup of class rings to be able to look at that. They'll do measurements for cap and gown at that same time. They really like to have all the ordering done by December if possible, so that they know that they have enough product for everyone. That said, if you're not able to manage doing it this semester, you can always go online or call them, or even go in person. Their offices are in Fresno, and follow up and order that way later. But we do recommend trying to do it this fall. If you order a class ring, the cap and gown are free. The cap, gown, and tassel will come free. They do ask for a $70 deposit to do the order for the class ring. The cap and gown, I'm not sure on the cost. I think it was somewhere maybe in the $50 range. I don't remember exactly. If you have a former graduate and you want to use that cap and gown, that's fine as well. It's not a problem. And again, if there's a hardship at all, please do let us know on that.
The only difference is if it would be a new stole, right? It wouldn't be an old stole.
Depending on how far back. We switched the stoles, I think, a few years ago, so they didn't have the graduation year. So it just depends how far back your senior would have been or your graduate would have been. I have on here, I'm just putting these up so you're aware of this. All the dates that we're talking about, I created a couple calendars. These are on the website that I showed you earlier, the senior site, and you're welcome to, you can open them, print them. I gave the students hard copies that wanted them to be able to put them up on the fridge. So there's one that's specifically college focused here. And then there's one with all the other senior dates that we're talking about, yearbook, grad night, financial aid. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that's all hopefully a little bit more organized in one place. As Dr. Ching said earlier, it's really important that you're able to get information from us. Definitely with seniors, we're trying to blast information out in a timely manner as much as possible. For parents, we're using Parent Square as our main form of communication. And so through Parent Square, we can blast out both texts and emails to the whole senior class. So if you haven't signed up, I definitely encourage you to do this. They do have an app, which my understanding makes it, of course, even easier on your phone because it'll blast out notifications to you when those come in. But this will be our main mode with parents. And hopefully you've already gotten some because I've sent a few out. If you're on here and you haven't received anything at all regarding seniors, please get in touch with us so that we can troubleshoot that, because definitely I've sent a few alerts out. For the students, we set up a texting update through the Remind program, which is something they've used a lot in classes. There's a limited number of people that can sign up for this. So the students have mostly signed up, and so we really are encouraging parents to make sure they have Parent Square access, and we'll be sending information out to you that way. And then also texting your students through the Senior Remind, and hopefully they will be able to keep track of dates on their own as well, right? That's what we're working towards, at least by the end of this year. Okay, so we're going to jump in a little bit to some college points. I want to start first with the California community college system. This is a map of all the colleges throughout California. There's over 100 California community colleges. And one of the things I was talking to students about is, like, because we know community college is free right now. If you're very adamant that you don't want to stay in the area to start, are there family members that live in some of these other areas that maybe they would let you stay with them, that you feel comfortable staying with them, that your parents would be open to you staying with them, and that might give them some other options to be in a free setting in a way that might work. Some students get very antsy and they want to get out, but we really encourage them, if they're going to do community college, to be staying with family if possible, just because of the cost of room and board and having to deal with that while they're also trying to go to school and actually trying to work. It just becomes a lot of juggling. The local community college, State Center Community College District, they come and they do everything with us. So students who are looking at Fresno, Reedley, Clovis, Madera, or Oakhurst, that they will be coming and we walk through the whole process together. It's very helpful. There's 4 steps in the process. So the online application, an online orientation, an advising session with one of the college counselors, and then finally registering for classes. The first step, the online application, our outreach person from Clovis Community College is going to be coming in November to the Living Pro classes. And so every senior will be completing an application. And we're just encouraging them to do that as a backup. Some students are saying, I know I want to go to 4-year, this is my goal, but we have them do this as a backup just in case if financially they decide maybe this is the best starting point. For students who are like, I don't want to go to college at all, I'm just going to go out and work, we have them do this as a backup in case come April they change their mind. They've done all these steps, like I showed you, there's 4 steps. We want to make sure they take care of everything so that they're ready to register for classes if they do change their mind. The step 2 is an online orientation that will open December 1st. Students have to have their application done before that, and they'll come and we'll do a workshop for students on the online orientation for those that need help completing that. That'll be in December. The online orientation, it's very important that they finish it as soon as possible once it opens. The college uses that to set the time and date for students to register for classes. So there's a 3 or 4 day window for class registration in April, and the student's time and date is set based on completing the online orientation. So the earlier the better, so that they don't end up with classes, an 8 o'clock class if they're not a morning person can be pretty brutal. So we want to make sure they can have their choice there. Step 3 is the advising session. This is meeting with the college counselor. We'll send you information on dates once they give that to us, but that is a mandatory piece. And they basically meet with the counselor and they work through the list of classes that they're recommending for them to register for. And they'll give them usually the fall and spring set up so that they're ready to go for their first year. And then the last step would be class registration in April. It's usually the last week in April. Students do it all on their own online, but we'll have support from the college in case there's for troubleshooting or help walking through the process. But again, they have to have completed steps 1, 2, and 3 before they can register for classes. But then, yeah, April they register and they're good to go. And I think there might be a small, I don't know if it's a health fee. There's a very small fee that they do have to pay. Usually, I think it's by the end of June that has to get processed. But the tuition at this point with community college is free. I want to point out 2 different transfer programs that the community colleges have. This is throughout California for students that are looking to go to 4-year college but might choose to start at community college level. So the first is called the Associate's Degree for Transfer. So a student, their first semester at community college, it's very important that they meet with their college counselor if they know that they want to go on to a 4-year. Because we want to make sure they're taking classes that they need that are definitely general education, so they're not having to spend more time than they have to at the community college. We want to get their general education requirements, their transfer requirements done. And usually if they're doing that in a timely manner, 60 units, they can get it done within 2 years or 2.5 years maybe. So let's see. The associate degree for transfer, they basically decide on a major, and then they would make their plan with the college counselor, and they're guaranteed a spot at a CSU in that same major, once they meet the general education requirements. And then the same is true with the University of California. This is called the TAG program. And with the TAG program, you meet with the counselor, you set up your plan, as long as you maintain at least a 3.5 GPA while you're in community college, and then you tag to specific UC campuses. The only schools that don't participate in this program, UCLA, UC Berkeley, and I believe now UC San Diego as well, because they are such high demand schools, and their requirements are higher than the other University of California's. But this is definitely a great option for students that know they want to go to 4-year and want to make sure they get their plan set up from the beginning. So speaking of going on to 4-year, we can talk a little about the California State system and the University of California system, the California State schools. The CSUs, which is Fresno State, Sac State, Long Beach State, like that, their application will open this Friday. And the general deadline for that application is November 30th. And the way their system works is you do one application, and then you can apply that application to multiple campuses. It's $55 per application. They also have a fee waiver built into the application. So if you meet their low income guidelines, then you can apply for free up to 4 schools. We are going to be doing application workshops at school, on campus during classes. And so it'll be a virtual workshop. We're going to be doing a virtual workshop next week on October 7th in their English class. And if they don't have the 6-period English class, I'll be blasting out a reminder for students to, they're welcome to come, even if they don't have that class in their schedule, they can still come that period. So we'll be doing those next week. I can blast the link out to parents as well. So if you want to also jump in and kind of see how that process is, you're welcome to do that. So as I said, there's a general deadline for November 30th. But as you can see on this slide, there's several campuses. They started this last year, maybe the year before, where some campuses have shifted their deadline. If they're not impacted, if the requests to get in aren't as high, then they've extended their deadline a little bit. So Fresno State, hard deadline, November 30th. It is an impacted campus. But then you'll see like Chico, they've pushed out to December 15th, and there's some that go even later. That said, if there's a program, even at Chico State, that is impacted, which means it's a very high demand, they don't have enough seats for people that apply, that specific program their deadline may be November 30th. So maybe nursing at Chico is an impacted program. Even though Chico's deadline is December 15th, that specific program might close on November 30th. So we're still encouraging people to get applications in by November 30th, but I just want to make sure you're aware that if that doesn't happen for some reason, there is a lot of campuses that are taking late applications, just not Fresno State. This is a list of the things students need to apply. I have this linked on the senior website. One thing that I've reminded students about already is if they do not know their social security number, to let their parents know right away that they're going to need that. We've asked for them to get that information by October 1st at the latest from you. So if you haven't heard from them or you need to dig out that social security card so that they have that, they will need that for the community college application, the CSU and UC applications, as well as for financial aid process.
And for the rest of their life. So tell them to memorize it.
Time to start memorizing it. Exactly. The UC applications, their filing window opens November 1st and their deadline is also November 30th. The application is open now to be able to start working on it. It's a fairly complex application. There's several parts to it, much more complex than the California State applications. We did a virtual workshop today during English class. That was during the AP English and the college English class. We did a virtual workshop today, so you can ask your student how that went. I will blast out, there's some follow-up advising sessions with UC Merced, which is our local campus, where you can meet, and the student can meet one-on-one with one of the admissions counselors, and they can advise them on specifics of the application. Those will be coming in November, but I'll be sending more information as we get closer on that. And there is information on the senior website about that. The EOP program, the Educational Opportunity Program. This is a really wonderful program that they have both at the Cal States as well as University of California. They have something similar at the community colleges as well, but this is for students who are either coming from a low-income family and or they're the first student in their family to go to university. So first-generation college student is the term that you'll hear. This is built into the application for both the CSU and the University of California. If your student meets these requirements, we really recommend that they apply for this. They get extra support in terms of counseling, tutoring, mentoring. Sometimes there's financial support. It might help cover books, or some availability like that. So it's really helpful. It really supports students as they enter that college process, and especially if they're the first ones in the family. They get a lot of support at the school to help guide them through freshman year. Oops, sorry. For any student looking at applying to a private school, such as Azusa Pacific, Fresno Pacific, University, USC, Stanford, or any out-of-state private, this common application is very similar to the CSU and University of California applications, where you do one application and then you can use it at multiple campuses. So it makes it a little bit easier. There's over 650 different colleges that use it. A lot of the out-of-state schools will use this as well. So I suggest that students start here, look at this, see if the colleges they want to apply to are here. And then use this before going and doing separate applications at the individual schools. This doesn't apply to the Cal States and the University of California. They have completely separate application processes. So it's the commonapp.org for that. One of the I wouldn't say benefits, but one of the silver linings maybe of COVID is that these virtual college fairs have sprouted up and they've been really successful. So in California, as you can see, there's upcoming dates for these virtual college fairs that include the California state system, University of California, and then all the nonprofit private colleges in California. So that would include like Stanford, USC, most of the small private Christian colleges in California, they're part of this organization. So these would be a great opportunity, like if your student is still not sure where they want to apply, great opportunity to check this out. You're not tied to only to going to one, to the Central California one, for example. Like if the November or October 2nd one works better for you, even though it's NorCal, that's fine. You can go to whichever one will work best, but definitely recommend it if students are trying to figure this out still of where they want to apply. You can meet one-on-one with an outreach person. There's virtual tours. All of that is built in. And then at the national level, there's very similar process set up, the national college fairs, where they're doing throughout October and November. And you can see November 2nd, there's one specifically for art and STEM as well. And so I definitely recommend if your student is looking outside of California as well to check out one of these college fairs, be able to talk to reps there. Okay, just a little bit about testing. The California state system, so the CSUS and the University of California, are not using the SAT or the ACT as part of their admission process. Those of you that have had graduates in the past going to four-year college, this used to be a requirement at all colleges and universities, or most colleges and universities. So they're not using it at all as a criteria to decide who they're going to accept. What they've said is they will use it for placement purposes. So if you take the SAT, they will use that math score to help decide what math class you would go into, but they're not using it to decide on admissions. And many of the private colleges and universities have also declared that they are at least test optional, where it's not required. Some of them may still be using it as part of their criteria. So if your student is looking at a private college or university, I definitely would suggest checking their website, seeing what their requirements are. There are test dates for both of these tests all the way through December. Students can take. We're doing the October tests just coming up. Actually, the SAT is this Saturday and then the ACT in 3 weeks. And I know several students are signed up for those, but they are able to also test in November, December, and use those test results for most schools. Some might have earlier deadlines. For SAT practice and also for ACT, really recommend that students use Khan Academy. They've partnered with College Board, and so they do personalized test prep for students. They'll set up a timeline for them for drills, and once they do the first assessment, they can identify where the needs are and help them practice their Khan Academy is something students are very familiar with. At Minarets, we've used it a lot for extra practice and support, especially in math primarily. We do have fee waivers available. So if your family's low income, which in what they're looking at is qualifying for free and reduced lunch requirements, then we can give them 2 fee waivers for each of the tests so they can take that for free. Okay, financial aid, the federal application for the free application for federal student aid, the FAFSA, opens as well this Friday. So we have until March 2nd to apply for California. The Cal Grant, which is the California grant system, their deadline is March 2nd. So there is time, but we recommend that students apply as soon as they can, especially if they're looking at four-year colleges, because you want to be able to process that information as soon as you can to see what financial aid is going to be available. The FAFSA covers both grants and loans through the federal government, as well as money through the Cal Grant system, which is the California system. And community colleges, as I said before, are free to all students, regardless of family income, if you complete the FAFSA. So we're really expecting everyone to get the FAFSA done, and then you have that access to community college for free, like I said, regardless of income. So we want to make sure people take care of that as soon as we can. We are going to be doing workshops coming up with Clovis Community College. That's our local partner. So I'll have dates coming up. I'm still waiting from that to hear from them to finalize the dates on that, and I'll send that out as soon as I have that. One assignment that they're doing in Living Pro is creating an FSA ID. This is the first step with the FAFSA, where they basically create their username and password, and they are able to use this as their electronic signature when they complete the FAFSA. So this is we're doing this as an assignment to kind of get that ball rolling. They do need a social security number to get this set up. So if they haven't asked you yet for that, if they don't know it yet, if you can help facilitate that. This is also a requirement for the parent, because the FAFSA needs to be signed by the student and one parent or guardian. So if one of the parents could make sure to get that taken care of, you will need to do that in order to be able to sign the FAFSA once it's completed. And that's the FSA ID. They should have been hearing a lot about this already, so you can talk to your students about it, and they can walk you through the process, because hopefully they will have done it already. I think their deadline class is October 1st to do this. Okay, let's talk a little about scholarships. The Cal Grant, like I said, the California State System for Grants, they created a middle class scholarship, I don't know, probably about 5 years ago. And so there is, there might not be a full grant like somebody would get from low income, but it can be anywhere between $500 to $2,000 in that range from what I've seen. So it might pay for books for a semester, or it might help cover tuition, but there's definitely more funds available now than there used to be for people that are kind of more in that middle class range, because before it was primarily low income. Any students that are looking outside of California, I highly recommend looking into the Western Undergraduate Exchange. This program covers, I think it's probably around Texas west from that area, and it covers state colleges, both community college and four-year college level across the West. The tuition is much less than paying in out-of-state tuition, which is usually at least double the cost of in-state. So I definitely recommend students look at this. The GPA is often a little bit higher than the general requirement to get in. Their application timing is usually a little bit earlier, but you can go into the website, select the state that you're thinking you want to go to. It'll give you the different colleges that have this scholarship program and the majors that are available, and it's a great way to get in. We definitely had a lot of students use this who are looking at going out of state, and again, there's a link on our website to this. So Fresno State, I'm using Fresno State as an example to show you the many different scholarships that are available at individual colleges. So every college, community college or four-year level, will have their own scholarship site. And so once students have a clear idea of where they're going, we really want to make sure that they look at that college's scholarship website, see what the options are. So as an example with Fresno State has a Smith Camp Family Honors College scholarship. This is a full ride to Fresno State, 4 years of tuition, as well as support for room and board. That we really recommend any student that has at least a 3.8 GPA can look at applying. The deadline is December 10th, and it's a pretty complex application. There's, I think, 2 or 3 S's that they have to complete. So they definitely want to be looking at that sooner than later. And again, it's a free ride. They also have in the Lyles College of Engineering, and they have an honors scholarship as well. So any student, if they're looking at going into engineering, definitely recommend applying for that. It seems to actually be easier to get than the Smith Camp because it's only focused on engineering. We've had a few students go through that program, get the full ride there. That one is 4 years of tuition at Fresno State. And then Fresno also has, they have over like 200 different scholarships. And, what I tell students is that there's a lot of those they don't go claim. People don't claim them because they haven't applied. And so it's really important to do the work, do the lead work, see what's available, see what you qualify for. Their general deadline for those is March 2nd. So once students get their application into the college, then that whole site opens up to them and they can start looking at as well the scholarship options there. The UC system also has a scholarship built in for low-income families. So a family it makes under $80,000 a year, they're guaranteed tuition for 4 years, free tuition under the Blue and Gold Opportunity Program. And between that Blue and Gold program, as well as grants from the state and the federal government, that will usually cover at least partial room and board, not complete, but it covers a good chunk of that. So it's almost a free ride there. And then private schools, for example, Stanford, USC, the Ivy Leagues, they have very similar programs. So Stanford, for example, if the family is under 60,000 a year, the student will get free ride, complete free ride, room and board, as well as tuition. They have to get in to Stanford, but once they get in, as long as if they meet those requirements, they'll get a free ride. If the family is making under, they raise the limit to 140,000 or 150,000, somewhere in that range, then they will give free tuition for those 4 years. Again, assuming the student gets in. So there's a lot of those programs out there at the private school level as well that, you know, just recommend to students, if you want to apply, you apply, you see what's available to you in terms of financial aid, and then you make your final decision. Scholarship search engines, I have several of these listed on our website. Again, there's millions of dollars that go unclaimed every year because people don't apply for these scholarships. There's national organizations that have a lot of money that they're offering for students for education. And this isn't tied to specific colleges. Some of it might be based on merit. Some of it might just be based on, you know, submitting an essay and meeting their requirements that way. Again, the links to all of the websites that we're talking about are on our senior site, bit.ly Minarets 22. The local, one last piece on scholarships, our local senior scholarship awards, they happen every spring, winter, spring. I'll go into classes in January to talk about this process. We've given away over $100,000 each year over the last several years. And this is all from our local community organizations that are raising money to help support students in Eastern Madera County and throughout the county and from Fresno as well. So I really recommend that every student apply if they're doing any kind of post-high school training. This includes trade schools, community colleges, four-year colleges. So we'll have more information in January for that. Their deadline is in March, and then it's in May. And if anybody's attended, it's usually really sweet seeing all the support from the community members there. So my suggestion to students is to keep their options open. Apply now. If they don't apply, they're closing the door, right? So they apply now, even if they're not sure if they want to go to Fresno State or if they want to go far away or if they want to go to community college. Put all the options out there by applying. And then winter, spring is when you'll have a better idea of what financial aid is available, and then be able to make final decisions based on, you know, where the student got into, what financial aid package maybe a school is going to give you. Maybe the decision is going to be community college because that really is the smartest route so that there's not student loans down the road, right? We know we have those 2 years free available for student, and then they can transfer if they're going to keep going on to four-year college. So this is one example of one of the scholarship websites. I had students go in, set up their profile, and decide on a scholarship that they were going to apply to. One of the great things about having the Living Pro class is students are going in and doing scholarship applications regularly. I think her expectation is that they do one once a week, and they have to post that into a running document that they're using to show that. So this is a site that we really like because it will bundle scholarships. So they'll, you know, maybe they write an essay and then they can use that essay for 10 different scholarships instead of having to go in and do one at a time like that. So it's kind of maximizes their work. So they went in, you know, they set up a profile, they put in as much detail as they can, and then it gives them a list of scholarships. Like I did this just kind of as a you know, a dummy student account, and that's what I came up with, over 400,000. And you can see as students put in more detailed information, there's a lot more availability I send out once a month, I get an update from Going Mary with what's available for that month. So I'm sending that out monthly to students. And so we just sent out the October one. I sent that out maybe the middle of last week that came out. So we'll be doing that regularly as well. Really trying to encourage them to, do the work because it does pay off. And I think that's what we have for this evening. If anybody does have any questions, there is a Q&A available to be able to ask questions, and we can either respond verbally or we can respond to you privately as well if you like. But this is recorded. We have recorded this, and so we will be sending out the link as well in a senior message sometime this week, as well as some other details and information that we have for you. So if there aren't any questions, thank you for joining us. And we're excited to be working with you all this year and working with your students and helping them get to the finish line. It's amazing. Like 12, 13 years of school, they're reaching the end here.
And if you guys at any point have any ideas of how we can, do special things for seniors, or you'd like to be part of any kind of planning committees or give us feedback, don't be afraid to reach out, because we'll always take parent volunteers. And we have some things coming up. We're going to do a senior meeting here pretty soon, and we want to do a breakfast for them at that meeting. So there's always little things we can do here and there to make them feel cherished and pump them up and excited to be seniors. So this graduating class this year is 133 students, I think, at this time. And then Miss V, you want to post that?
Yeah, posting that right now.
Okay. I saw a question earlier I couldn't answer, but it was about the messenger. If you're into Parent Square, if you have that app on your phone, I have it as a parent of a Chewonki student, or a couple of them. And you can do push notifications and it comes up just like a text. So anytime we put a messenger out, you guys can see that right on your phone.
Okay, I apologize. Yeah, the Q&A wasn't coming up. Senior
Looks like we only
message.
had a couple. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, really, we're going to be using Parent Square primarily. So if it's easier for you to download the app and use that, that's great. But as we send out alerts, they also come on text and email.
All right. Well, we're going to say goodbye. And those of you that don't have questions, you can jump off. If you do have questions, please just type them in and we'll wait around for a little bit to address those. Everybody have a great night, and hopefully we get to see you guys soon.
Yes, I see this question about scholarships. I'll just answer it verbally as well. Some scholarships will ask for that as part of their criteria. Not everybody is, I think, at the same point with the testing. So, I mean, especially some of the more elite scholarships, you will see that they are requesting that. I don't know if they're necessarily requiring it, but it would be one of the criteria that they would be using. So I did recommend that to the students, that they may want to think about it if they're looking at more scholarships like that. Hope that helps, Cindy.
Graduation. Graduation. Let me make sure I get this right because we just had a second. Let me make sure I pull up the calendar and tell you the right one. It's the Thursday of the last week of school, as always, which will be yeah, so graduation is on. It is right. So June 2nd. Yeah, like Claudia said, is it too late to yeah, because the SAT at our site is Saturday, right? They can't register at this point, or can they?
No, they can still register for the ACT at our site, but there's
Yeah.
also the option of registering for later test dates as well for the November SAT or December SAT or the December ACT. So there's still
It really
there's
depends on yeah, like Claudia said, it really depends on where specifically you want to go and you're applying to, and I would just figure out the preferences of those schools. And so like we're kind of in that limbo where some are still accepting it, some are like, okay, moving on. We anticipate that eventually they're all going to kind of move on from those tests, but right now we're somewhere in between, it seems like. So um, I would check with each university or anything. Yeah, so each student has 3 pictures in the yearbook, all the seniors, I should say, and it does have to be a horizontal view versus the vertical view. We don't have any preference or set photographers for that. We just you can pick the photographer of your choosing, um, and you just submit 3 photos to us by December 1st. We'll send out that link as a reminder. What's in the presentation? This presentation will be available to everybody as well. Um, but yeah, that's just kind of the general criteria. The only other thing we talked about is being in dress code for those pictures. Well, yeah,
I
and
believe
baby
it's a
picture.
baby picture, right? Are they asking for that?
Hmm. Anybody else?
Okay, well, I think there's a few people still here, but maybe they forgot that they were still on. So
All
I
right,
think
folks, we appreciate your time. Reach out if you have any other questions. Good night. Good night, Miss Vandenberg.
good night. Thank you all.